All right. So now that we have an approved agenda, sorry, Councillor Nelson, do you have a comment? Or maybe something else to bring forward?
No, I was just, I have a recommendation to move a motion for open forum, if that's okay. I was preemptively getting excited for the open forum section. Okay,
well, I'll come to you in a second in the sense that I just want to announce that that's the part of the agenda that we are on our open forum. And as we know through our procedure bylaw, this allows people to speak to items that are listed on our agenda. And our procedure bylaw allows 3 minutes per individual up to five. I think it's 5 individuals that can speak, either manual or electronically. There's two different formats there. Obviously, we're electronic today. And Madam Deputy Clerk, or Madam Clerk, how many people do we have? Anybody wishing to speak today for our open forum?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So we actually have a really large number of people wishing to speak at open forum today. The final count as of 12 o'clock, which was the deadline for registration, was 35 members. There are 1 member to speak on the arena opening, 1 member to speak on the rodeo item, and the rest were on the Talisman issue. As we're aware, the procedure bylaw only allows for 5 people in person or 5 people electronically for a total of 3 minutes each. So in order to sway from that, we would require that there be a motion from a member of council to sway from that, to allow additional people to speak or to allow additional timing.
So just before I entertain that, but to our procedure bylaw, currently, is there like a who comes first order? Like, is there like, how does that read in the sense of 5? How is that?
Previously, before we entered into this hybrid environment and this electronic environment, it was the first 5 people that signed up. That is how the order of speakers went. And then we closed the registration after the 5 has been filled. Because of the registration with Zoom, we don't really have that ability to track it on a per person thing. The open forum in person only opened 15 minutes before the meeting as people were entering council chambers. So it's a little bit of a different environment. So it does not speak to who gets to speak or what order. We do have them laid out in order of registration, the time of their registration.
So according to the hybrid way of dealing with it today would be first come, first serve on that list going through. Okay. Correct. And just one other clarity, you said the arena report, the rodeo report, and the Talisman. So that Talisman would be the bylaw.
So most of the people have mentioned just sale of Talisman. They didn't actually specify. A few people did specify either item 9.10 or item 10.6 or both of them. They're both related to the same thing.
Yeah, I just want to get that clarity. Thank you very much for that, Madam Clerk. And Councillor Nelson, you wish to be recognized.
Thank you very much, Mayor McQueen. I would like to move a motion to try to allow for more speakers to speak at the open forum. So I would like to move the motion as stated, that council suspend section 7.16 of the procedural bylaw related to the number and timing of open forum participants, and that council permit all persons registered for open forum to speak for a maximum of 1 minute each. While it is lowering the amount of time that an individual can speak, the objective is to try to get everybody an opportunity to speak at least a little bit.
Okay. And so is there a seconder for that motion, Councillor Little? And just to clarify on that, I would expect then that we would, as we open up to each person, we'd ask for name and address. And I will say that we want to be respectful of those speakers, and if it steps out of that realm, then we want to be respectful for all. So discussion on that. So that's moved by Councillor Nelson and Councillor Little. Councillor Albert.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council and staff. Are we saying that even the 2 that would like to speak on the arena and sorry, I've forgotten the other item now. Are they limited to 1 minute, or do they get their full 3 minutes? And the 33 or so that need to speak on Talisman, given the number would be limited to 1 minute. Is that what we're intending here?
I'll get clarity from the mover, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. To Councillor Elwood, it is hard to say one person is allowed more time than another. So while I respect that the larger number of people are trying to speak on one item, I would probably suggest 1 minute for everybody to be equal and fair to everybody who signed up for open forum today. I know that's challenging for the two people who have a different item to speak on, but trying to be fair and equitable across the board.
Okay, Councillor Elwood, do you have a follow-up to that? Do you have any other comments to that?
No, thank you for that clarity. I was just trying to remember, we had a similar situation not too long ago where we had a bunch of speakers on one item, and I thought that was the way we dealt with it, where we limited the number of, or the time rather, for the people that were all talking on the same item and accommodated hearing all of them. But I'll vote with the will of council. Thank you.
Certainly, this is a motion on the floor. It can be amended, but this is the current motion that's on the floor right now. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondered if it would be appropriate to allow the two that are not speaking on the Talisman properties to go first, just in case they need to get back to work or something like that, that they're not waiting around for an hour and a half.
So I'm going to go to the clerk for procedural part of that. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. If you're following the order of order of registration, the first two registrants were on the other two items.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that clarity. So that's already in place, Councillor Allen, just the way it worked out. So, okay. Any other comments with regards to the motion on the floor that we're going to suspend the procedure bylaw and move toward our open forum delegates to have 1 minute each? Any further discussions on that one? And that was moved by Councillor Nielsen, second by Councillor Little. All in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, Madam Clerk, new rules for our procedural bylaws. So do you have any questions?
I have no questions. It's 1 minute each. It's going to take a little bit for us to find people to be able to give them the permission to speak. For all those that registered for open forum, your name will be announced by the deputy clerk. She will then give you permission to unmute yourself. There are 4 people that have called in, so their names are being shown as call-in listeners. So when your name is called, if you can use the raise hand feature so we can find you a little bit easier when it's your name. As well, and then you'll be able to unmute and move forward in that way. So we'll start with, I guess, Deputy Clerk Levitt will call off the name of the order of the registrations were received.
Right. And just before you move on, you're obviously there's only 3 items, so we know the first 2 will be the 2 other items. So once we get into number 3 to 35, we'll know it's all the same item, and that'll save a little bit of time on announcing, re-announcing.
Yes, and I will point out that I do not, previously I usually have a 3-minute timer that I can put on my screen. I do not have a 1 minute timer set up in that way. So I will keep my camera off, and when my camera comes back on, that means that the timer is off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can sort of run a clock here as well, but it is harder for us when we're trying to pay attention. And yeah, so soon as you appear, then is that what you're saying? As soon as you appear, okay, that'll be simple, very simple, very good. That's super for that. Any other questions of clarity before we, because it's going to be a little bit of time here. I do ask that you provide your name and address, and certainly be respectful of the time and as you bring forward your information. Okay. All right.
Mayor McQueen, just before we get going, I do just want to let people know that open forum is a chance for people to speak, not for council to respond. So this is not a question and answer. I just want to make sure that all the open forum speakers are aware of that under the procedure bylaw, that council is just taking in the information, and then they may debate or consider the information they received when the actual item comes forward on the agenda.
Yeah, thanks for that clarity. And I know myself, I got pen and paper too, and I'm sure everybody else does too, for taking down all the comments that come in. Okay, I'll leave it over to the clerk's department to start, please.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Our first speaker is Darlene Lamberty, and she's speaking on item 8.5, which is the rodeo.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Good
Okay,
afternoon.
great. Good afternoon, Mayor McQueen, Your Worship, and Council. Thank you very much for having me here today. I've got to talk quick because I only have 1 minute, but I think I can do this. I am Darlene Lamberty, Executive Director of the Centre Grey Health Services Foundation here at the Markdale Hospital. The rodeo last fall was a fantastic success from so many different perspectives. Our biggest challenge here at the foundation is to educate the community. Many people, service clubs, businesses are not aware that this community is responsible for 100% of the costs of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that are in their local hospitals. They're not aware that the foundation's goal is to raise $1 million every single year for local health care. The rodeo is a perfect venue for us to reach and educate people that we may not otherwise have an opportunity to reach. I'd also like to point out that it is a great way for the community to support local healthcare. At the past rodeo, I spent a lot of time greeting people as they entered the grounds, and I thank them for coming and supporting local healthcare. Many of the people firmly stated that they came because they wanted to support local healthcare. So I consider that a win-win.
Thank you, Darlene.
Oh my gosh, is it a minute already? Sorry. I just want to say it was a great time. I had a lot of fun, and I hope we can do it again.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, okay, just before we go on to the next one, I wonder if there's a way, if they can see me, that I can put my hand up. There's 10 seconds left. I don't know. I know it's hard when you're trying to get everything done, but I don't know. Is there some way I can signal, or somewhere if you come on 10 seconds? I don't know. It's like that early warning.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I can actually turn on my camera at 10 seconds before. That way it kind of triggers to.
Yeah. Just to make it easy and streamlined. Thank you.
So I'll pop in between 15 and 10 seconds remaining, and then at the end I'll do this, and then you can see.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Angela Teeter, speaking on item 8.1.
Can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm going to be very quick. My one question also, if you could follow up, can I submit my entire document so that I get my full time to be heard? So Markdale, I live in Markdale. I work in Markdale. I have a business in Markdale. I'm on 3 committees in Markdale. The decision to not open Markdale is very concerning. The CAO staff have indicated it's a human resourcing issue. So I ask, when there was a staff shortage in garbage and recycling pickup, and the decision was made that one community, if they lost 100% of the garbage service during the duration of the staff shortage, and all the other communities received 100%, and we lost all of ours, would that be acceptable? The fact that there's been a staffing shortage at the dumps physically happened in January, and you didn't close a single location, you merely restricted hours. Why are we losing our entire ice surface rental time? They say everyone has been accommodated. They have not been. Chatsworth has gone elsewhere. Highlanders have lost 50% of their time.
Sorry, Angela, we're in a real tight, but do send that. Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Stephen Griggs.
It feels like the Olympics.
Just takes a moment to find.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
You hear me now? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. I think it's very fitting that today is Groundhog Day, because here we seem to have Council preparing to make the same mistakes that they've done in the past. I urge Council not to approve the bylaw, or to, as a minimum, postpone the consideration of it for the following reasons. First, Council has nothing before it that either recommends acceptance or rejection of this offer. There's no staff report being provided on one of the most important decisions to be made by Council in years. And what is clear to me is that the development in this sensitive area is counter to the key pillars of the strategic plan, and I refer you back to that. I look forward to hearing each councillor and the mayor speaking as to why they personally believe this sale is in the best interest of the community and furthers the objectives of the strategic plan. Second, due process has not been followed. From the wording of the bylaw, it is clear that council recognizes that it has made procedural errors and entirely failed to follow its own policy on the sale of surplus lands. Simply adding wording to the bylaw to try to cure these defects does not make the results right and justifiable, and may in fact not even be legal. Fourth, there's no reason to rush this process. Clearly, the matter was added to the agenda at the last minute with no publicity.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Next, we have Jane Farrow, and I should have mentioned the rest of the speakers from this point on are speaking regarding item 10.6 and or 9.10. So let me just find Jane.
Thanks for that clarity.
Can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Okay, 1 minute. This is an egregious, more abusive process. It's kind of astonishing to me. We're rushing through these things. This is such an important decision. I oppose the sale of the Talisman lands clearly, and the municipal staff advice that you've chosen not to challenge. I know that it's their job to give you this advice. They've given you bad advice and you are going along with it. So it's up to you to accept or reject the deal. The process is terrible. I'm calling it out for what it is, a flagrant disregard for the principles of democracy, transparency, and accountability that you vowed to uphold as an elected official. You sold public lands conditionally to the lowest bidder, not just lands, prime Niagara escarpment lands, to a developer with very little in their portfolio or track record to suggest that they will be able to deliver on a deal, an agreement of this scale and scope. Behind closed doors, you want us to trust us. You don't really tell us what's in this agreement, so that we might actually have something to evaluate whether we can trust you or not. You don't answer letters, emails, phone calls. You have broken the public trust. And that is a terrible cost.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mary Ferguson. Go ahead, Mary.
Good afternoon. Are you there, Mary?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. You asked Robert Barnett to unmute. You may have neglected to ask Mary to unmute.
Okay. I see Mary. I see Mary's here now. So thank you. Good afternoon, Mary.
Mayor McQueen, I'm wondering if someone shared their registration link. That this is what happens. It registers as the user who shared the link. So let me just see if there's another.
I just changed this Mary Ferguson name to Robert Barnett,
okay.
So we're aware in the future.
Okay. So do we have a Mary Ferguson speaking, or is it actually Robert?
So if Mary Ferguson can please raise her hand.
Okay, Mary is with us now, I believe.
Okay, so does that mean you can hear me now as well?
Good afternoon, Mary.
Hi. Okay, so I'm Mary Ferguson. This is the third time that Friends of the Beaver Valley and our partner EBC have been speaking with you to communicate about some wonderful possibilities. When we heard about this meeting on Monday, we sprang into action to prepare our voices to be heard today again. We have all been working for a year trying to influence council for real possibilities with local leadership for the development of the Talisman lands. We tried to understand council's decision-making process, but throughout all this time, you have been opaque. Instead of listening to your community, you've listened to one voice, that of Westway. Your decision-making processes are failing you and all the residents of Grey Highlands. Today, you are about to sell a jewel that is currently still ours to own and develop, but in a few hours, you will have given it away to an outside party with no commitment to us or our constituents. Friends of the Beaver Valley and EBC urge you to vote against the selling of the property to Westway. In our first meeting with you, one of the councillors referred to the Talisman lands decision-making process, that it was sort of like being in a Groundhog Day kind of thing. Here we are again on Groundhog Day.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, our next speaker is Ka Lazure.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
I'm Kate Lazier. Sorry about the typo. I will rush and dispense with pleasantries. I'm sorry. When it comes to the Talisman site over and over again, we observe that what you say is completely different from what you do. You say you want to maximize profit and yet clearly accepted an offer that's below market value, and you ignored a compelling offer of more funds from the respected Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy. You say you care about the environment and climate change. In fact, by putting new development on 64 acres of existing green and agricultural land, you're doing exactly the opposite, breaking up wildlife corridors, increasing CO2 emissions, cutting down trees, and polluting the Beaver River. You're risking our water supply, given what we know about karst geology. Because your floodplain mapping is out of date and doesn't incorporate climate change modeling, you're risking catastrophic floods that would wreck new development, compromise nearby sewage lagoons and other critical infrastructure. You say your process is fair and open, but you don't conduct a transparent process in accepting bids for the land, and you ignore the results of the Beaver Valley visit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Robert Barnett. Robert, are you able to unmute?
Sorry, I started talking. I unmuted a while ago. Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen and Council. I believe it's unfair to only allow me to speak for 1 minute about our offer. We've offered you $2,775,000, which I now understand is higher than the other offer. Escarpment Conservancy is the largest Ontario-focused land trust. We have a very successful partnership with you and Blue Mountains over at Heathcote, where everybody's sharing the same parks that we own. We have a half interest in that land. So we have the money but we will have the money to buy this property. And we're offering you a full cash offer. And we think it's unfair when you should be concentrating government land on government objectives and meeting your official plan and that of Grey County. Accepting the Westwood offer will not do that. I'm sorry. So we've brought you a cash offer for the full market value of your properties.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Linda Pym. I'm just still finding her in this list.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I'm here representing the Niagara Escarpment Foundation to sell off a precious natural asset to private development interests when all governments should be retaining their natural heritage lands as a legacy for the future is breathtakingly short-sighted. If Grey Highlands finalizes the sale of the Talisman lands it owns to Westway, make no mistake, this action would become known far and wide in a very negative light in communities up and down the whole Niagara Escarpment. Grey Highlands would soon become a pariah when it comes to Niagara Escarpment protection for future generations. If the public lands at Talisman are sold to maximize development and profits, this would constitute an unprecedented rupture of the historic tradition of private-public partnerships faithfully supporting the Niagara Escarpment Plan in the Beaver Valley. We urge Council to reject the draft Talisman bylaw. You have an historic opportunity to better protect a UNESCO biosphere and Ontario's Greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Heather Gilman. Heather, are you able to unmute? I'm not getting any responses here from Heather. Heather, are you there? Okay, our next speaker would be James Wayman. Just give me a sec to find James. I don't see you, James, in the list. If you're calling in by phone, can you press *9 to raise your hand? Okay. After James, we have Joe Killoran. Who I also don't see in the list. Same thing, Joe, if you've joined us by telephone, if you can press *9 to raise your hand. After Joe, we have James Clark. James Clark, okay, just one sec. We've had one. Oh, I do have James Wayman. I apologize. So if we could go back to that speaker.
Hi, this is James Wayman speaking. Thanks for taking my quick presentation. I just wanted to put it in my vote for pending any decision on the Talisman lands further to additional community consultation, because it seems like there are options available that are focused on sustainable growth rather than a quick business deal. I'd like to ask council to continue to negotiate with the community and with the Conservancy to come up with a decision that best suits our sustainable development plan for the next 5, 10, 15, 25 years. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just quickly go back. Joe Killoran or James Clark, if you're in attendance and can raise your hand, that would be great. I'm not seeing you in our list. And at the same time, I will just look for our next speaker. I'm not seeing anything. Our next speaker is Ayrton Dick.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayrton Dick. I'm a resident of Kimberley. The Beaver Valley is a gem in Ontario and undoubtedly the crown jewel of Grey Highlands. For decades, the township has stewarded these lands in a very prudent way, balancing the need to preserve nature, the local economy, and the interests of both residents, the recreational interests of residents and visitors. That record appears to have come to an end. We all recognize and embrace the need for economic development in a sensible manner. But I and many others are not in favor of what has been proposed by Westway. Not only is the sale price egregiously below market value for a development, but the misfits calling themselves Westway Capital are grossly unqualified to undertake a development project of this scale and importance. For Christ's sake, the analyst is a furniture salesman. Westway Capital is clearly in over their head. Most confusing is why you have not jumped on the opportunity handed to you on a silver platter by the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy. Here's a white knight swooping in with a perfect solution. You have audacity to not even consider it. Surely your judgment is severely impaired.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeff Black.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a residential taxpayer for 25 years. I was first privy to the wonders of Beaver Valley as a volunteer ski patroller at Talisman in the early 1970s. I'm a principal in the investment firm, and very much in our world is the focus on ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues. I fail to see that what the council has done to date has met any of those tests. And I would ask you a final question, assuming I'm no expert on the Municipal Act, but I'm assuming there's a fiduciary responsibility. And I'd ask you to sincerely search your souls as to whether you've met that obligation as fiduciaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Madam Deputy Clerk, Helen Gilmore, James Clark, or Joe Killoran, any sign of those individuals?
Not yet, Your Worship, but what I can do, we could keep going, and then I'll just keep checking and update you as we go. Our next speaker is Paula Glick.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to just share, I'm also a local close to Kimberley up on East Mountain. I love the area, very proud of this, of what Beaver Valley has to offer, and it is a precious gem. I totally copy so many of the existing comments that have already been made and very well thought through speeches. I too was not impressed with Westway. I am extremely concerned about the environmental degradation and the historic opportunity that you have here in front of you to make the right decision, given where we are with climate change, given all of the environmental potential and prospective difficulties. As fiduciaries, I really believe that you have something in front of you that needs to be reconsidered. And I agree that we need to continue to negotiate. And so I would request that in the name of better sustainability and better governance, that you rethink this.
Thank you. Thank you. Just going back, Madam Deputy Clerk, I got a text from Mr. Kelleran that he's been on Zoom call since 1:02, but my screen never showed an unmute button. I don't know if you're able to help him or not.
Okay, and sorry, that was Joe?
Yep.
And are you able to see what name he joined under, or if it's via phone, telephone? Sorry, I don't see him unless he's joined as another name. I'll look. We'll let Emma, if we can let Emma Stainton speak, and I will keep searching for Joe.
No problem.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I've been visiting this area for about 15 years. I have become a permanent resident in the past year and a half, and I am just beyond flabbergasted that this deja vu experience would happen, where the sale has been below market value and behind closed doors. I am not opposed at all to development. I just would like it to be transparent and involve obligations with the development company, ideally a suitable and experienced development company, to protect what we know is unbelievably important to our environment, especially in the floodplains of the lower golf course section. You know, I've been asking for updates as the council promised on their 5-year plan. Quarterly updates was the promise. They have not provided any updates and blamed that on the pandemic, but you happen to be able to move very quickly on this sale. And so I would appreciate if you could abide by your own commitments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Wendy McDonald.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Wendy McDonald from Kimberley, and I'm concerned that my request that council members address agenda item 9.0, the consent agenda portion, and that this has not come up yet during your meeting, and ask for you to remove item 9.10 regarding the sale of Talisman lands from said consent agenda items, and that the item be further addressed in general council with a full reading. Please address my request and give me some sort of response. I'm also asking for council to go beyond their interpretation of legal obligations and respond instead to the moral and ethical implications of your choice to sell the Talisman properties to Westway Newco, and to be aware of the court of public opinion. Please make the right choice according to the public feedback on the Talisman sale. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have T.O. Wayman.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi. I'm just going to make this quick. I'm a young resident, part-time resident up there. I've been coming up since I was a child, and I deeply love the area and deeply love the access to nature and all of the things that we have in the Escarpment area. And I'm also very worried about the proposed sell to Westgate, and I think that it is egregious that we've had offers made to you by the public for more money, and yet you're still selling it for less than it's worth, and to a company that doesn't have a great track record. And I think that you really need to listen to a lot of the younger community members and people who have also expressed their opinions on the sale. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Paul Woolner.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Great. Forgive my bluntness. I've been first of all, a 20-year resident in the Valley. But my family first came to the area 190 years ago. And the Woolner family settled just east of here. I've have growing dismay as I've seen this process unfold. I can't believe that we would single source a sale of this valuable land when any member sitting here at council today would not even have their own house painted with from a sole contractor, untested contractor to paint the house. So to sole source this solution with an untested, hastily put together company Westaway, I think is unconscionable. It's been the series of questions I have is what's the rush? Why the lack of transparency? And why have you forced your citizenry to bring a lawsuit against the municipality?
Thank you.
Next, we have Alex Spiegel.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you. I offer my comments from an informed perspective. I've worked in the development industry for over 45 years and have been involved in many innovative developments, including partnerships with municipalities. I have a strong track record in sustainable development as a partner with the Windmill Development Group. Based on this experience, I offer you my thoughts as a concerned citizen and community member. We're direct neighbors of the lands adjacent to Talisman on its southern flank. We chose to live here because of its extraordinary beauty and because we value the strong sense of community. Redevelopment offers incredible potential to restore the damaged landscape, enhance its biodiversity, and bring new cultural and economic life to the area. Sadly, the Westway Group does not offer much hope in achieving any of these goals. I'm frankly dismayed at the profound lack of transparency, authenticity, experience, and due process that has been demonstrated by this proponent. Why haven't other options not been considered? I expressed these concerns in a letter in July and have still not received a response. I'm very disappointed to say.
Thank you.
Next, we have Carol Jenkins.
Good afternoon. I'm an owner of lands that directly abut Talisman. I'm concerned with the lack of transparency, the lack of consultation, the lack of concern around environmental protections. Your process today shows that you need to postpone your current steps and at a very minimum, open a town hall Let people speak for more than a minute. Hear all of their concerns and answer their questions for what you've done to date and what you propose to do in the future. People have placed their trust in you as elected officials. What you are doing right now is betraying that trust. Hear from the people who elected you. Answer them so that at least we have some idea about why you're proposing what you're proposing, which in my view is completely contrary to the reasons that you've heard by all the people that have come before. Give us more than a minute, please.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jeanette Walter.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I want some answers, please. What is the rush to get this deal done? Mayor McQueen, you've publicly stated that there is no rush and it'll be done right this time. However, this time, there's not even any pretense of any public engagement. So why the rush? And please explain exactly what you have done right this time. What are the binding contractual obligations that you've been placed on Westway to ensure appropriate development? Zoning and the planning process can only allow for very inappropriate development at the end of the day. If the answer is there are no obligations, I would like to hear that stated publicly. Would it be correct to say that council is relying on their hope that Westway will play nice and do what's appropriate? I'd like an answer. Karen Gavan repeatedly said secrecy was required to protect Grey Highlands' bargaining power. There is no evidence in the legal contract of any bargaining done on behalf of Grey Highlands residents. Please explain how this secrecy benefited residents and was not done to give Westway full control of the deal, including shutting out competing offers. Also, please.
Next, we have Elizabeth Johnston.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Elizabeth Johnston from Showbox Side Road. I'd like to offer you $1,001 for the golf course today. I've never been given the opportunity to purchase just the golf course. I bid on the tube park and won it from my husband. He was born in Markdale and worked at Talisman. 10 years, Gary and I have been cleaning up the mess on the Talisman tube park property. Our retirement house is designed and we plan on being here a long time. We have managed other properties on significant wetlands. As neighbors to this parcel of land, it is your responsibility to inform us of any future development that can affect our peaceful retirement. If we base the sale price on the 80-acre farm that sold last year for over $10,000 an acre, that'd be a good place to start. We are currently successful in business. It would be a good choice. We have the maintenance sheds that were previously used for all the golfing and skiing. And trespassing is an ongoing problem, so please do not sell this to developers. The future tax infusion for the community is on top of your thoughts, but please look at other environmental factors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Monica Noy. Sorry, this is taking me a second.
Take your time.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name's Monica Noy. I live part-time in the Beaver Valley. I do myself have been on several boards, so I'd like to ask, can the council justify that due process for this sale is being upheld if a study to determine the significant economic benefits and environmental impacts from nature-based recreational activities is not undertaken? If the sale to Westway Capital is not seen to be in line with the environmentally protective Niagara Escarpment plan that outlines the types of land uses allowed on the Talisman lands, if the sale to Westway does not shield the Beaver Valley from rampant development along its corridor, continuous natural corridor, if the Grey Highlands Council does not abandon the conditional sale of the Talisman lands to Westway to consider all conservation first proposals for the future of the property, and if the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy offer, which is in line with conservation requirements, is not fully considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Juliet Nelson, And I'm not seeing Juliet in our list. So Juliet, if you're joining us from a telephone, could you please press *9 to raise your hand? And again, if we have no hands raised, we will move on. And then at the end, we could go back and give one last opportunity for anyone that we've missed. Our next speaker is Daniel Mcallister. Same thing, I'm not seeing Daniel. Daniel, if you are in attendance, if you on a telephone, if you could press *9 to raise your hand. After Daniel, we have Erica Ferguson.
Can you hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Hi, this 1 minute restriction is a bit of an insult. I just want to note no one speaker has been pro sale here. I had a 3-minute speech prepared, but I'll do my best. I've cut it down to this. There has been no formal consultation on Talisman since 2014. Councillors, I've spoken to each of you individually. It seems to me that you're responsible, courageous people with Grey Highlands' best interests at heart. But hear me now. You simply cannot make the best decision on this sale if you do not provide a proper forum for community consultation. You cannot delegate that responsibility to an outside interest, and doing so desecrates your role as Councillor of Grey Highlands. No one who is advising you wants you to consult the community properly. Not the developer, not your staff, not Think Compass. Community consultations are messy and time-consuming, but the crux of the matter is the community needs to be heard by you, not by private interests. And any decision you make without listening to us is a decision made in error. It is scary to engage in a difficult discussion, but it is your job.
Thank you.
Next, we have Christopher Reed.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I will be brief. My name is Chris Reed, and we are among the closest living people to Upper Talisman lands that is proposed to be sold and share infrastructure to that land. Like many residents, we've been dealing with a roller coaster of emotion due to the lack of consultation, information, and transparency on the sale of our neighboring green space, which all community members visit and enjoy. I'd specifically call it that word, green space, not surplus. As a neighboring resident, I must be clear that I am for progress on the Grey Highlands. I am for prosperity and development, and I'm for improving the lives and well-being of residents and visitors, all while balancing the needs of our environment. What we are opposed to is the absence of good process and values that are not vested in these outcomes to find an equitable balance between these interests. As a result, I am firmly against the bylaw in question as it stands today. Beyond what's shared, I'd ask 2 additional clarifying questions by Council and the CAO. In Schedule A, the now disclosed templated agreement of sale, why were critical sections stricken from the agreement, notably Section 2, preliminary draft plan for review, and Section 3, the public engagement strategy? As part of the closed negotiation.
Next speaker, we have Timothy Geary.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Timothy Geary, and although I'm a resident of the town of Blue Mountains, I border the Grey Highlands, and I am an interested party as this is a regional issue. I'm extremely concerned about the many aspects of the pending sale of the Talisman lands, and I strongly urge Council to not pass the bylaw that would enable this sale for the following reasons. The sale would be significantly below market value. This is a private sale without due diligence in determining a fair market value. It may be called an improvident sale, especially in that a higher offer was earlier rejected or not entertained by Council. The elements of the proposal are not transparent. We don't even know what is the intended use. And this sale fails to consider all of the stakeholders, especially the residents of the area. I really urge you to not approve this bylaw.
Thank you. So
Next speaker, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just a clarity from Mr. Killoran. He says that he's watching on his iPad and he's now properly on Zoom. So
Okay,
that's all.
I'll just have a quick. Yep, I do see Mr. Killoran, so we can go to him next if you wish.
I'm unmuted. Well, thank you, Paul.
Good afternoon.
Very quickly, I think the three evidence-based issues that should be looked at first before the sale of the land is approved. The first is environmental. On November 30th, I talked to one of the surveyors on the golf course lands, and the surveyor was doing a topographical survey, and basically a topographical survey, how much fill would they have to put on the 75 acres to raise it above the floodplain? And it's a natural no-brainer. You've got sewer, you've got water capacity, build homes on the golf course. What's it going to cost? And we've seen the free tipping in Salon, the dump trucks going in there, $5 dipping charge. And I calculated 75 acres. I took 8 feet, number of cubic yards, 968,000, 21 cubic yards per triaxle truck. And we're going to have 46,095 dump trucks coming through Kimberley down the hill to dump on the lands.
Thank you.
We're going to have earth that no.
Our next, we do have Daniel Mcallister with us now, so I'll allow him to speak next.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, are you able to unmute?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep. Good afternoon.
Yes. Thank you very much. I've already expressed my concern to all members of council in writing yesterday, and I'm deeply concerned and offended by this very ill-advised process. There's got to be a public consultation. There's got to be a proper RFP process. There's got to be disclosure. There's got to be environmental assessment. There's got to be all of the things that are normally done in a development, such as the town is doing in Markdale, which I admire. I demand that you abandon this process, throw it in the garbage, and start over in a proper manner. You owe this to your citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bruce Harbinson. Bruce, can you unmute?
Yes, good afternoon. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Truly appreciate the opportunity to speak before yourself, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. I am president of the Escarpment Corridor Alliance, and also am deeply concerned about the sale of these lands and the process that has been undertaken in order for these lands to be sold at this point. In particular, I know, Mayor, with all respect, you sit on the Niagara Escarpment Commission board and understand the value of the Niagara Escarpment Commission and the importance of the integrity of that plan and what it set out to do in terms of safeguarding one of Ontario's most unique natural attributes. And as I look at the strategic plan for the municipality of Grey Highlands, I see 5 pillars in there, many of which relate to the importance of the natural assets of the Niagara Escarpment and its importance, the Beaver Valley, its importance. Yes, is there a question?
Oh, sorry.
Somebody.
Sorry about that. You're done. And I wasn't watching the timekeeper there. I was writing everything you write down. So sorry about that, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Jenny Wayman, and I'm not seeing Jenny in the list. So Jenny, if you're with us via telephone, if you could press *9 to raise your hand. And if I don't see any hands, I will move to Lori Moore, who I believe is calling in. And there, okay, I believe this is Lori.
Can you hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Hi, I would like to echo everyone's comments. I mean, if you don't understand or get this message clearly at this point, I think it would be even more broken public trust at this point. The words that have been echoed is underhanded, abusive process, broken public trust, and negligence. I also urge you to reject and abandon this bylaw and offer. I also live in the area, and I personally know we have no ground source water, and our well is not able to sustain even one house, let alone development in this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ron McDonald.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Hello.
Yep,
Good afternoon. Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. Yeah, my name is Ron McDonald. We moved to Grey Highlands 5 years ago, just on the top of the escarpment. Given you, my question is just obvious, given everything that's here. You have 35 people, pretty much everyone's opposed to this. If you have this many people opposing this sale now, how does it make sense to proceed without more oversight? And including now you have two offers, another one on the table today, but you've got an offer from a recognized steward of the land in the EBC. And how could you choose a lower bid from a private company that has no record of caring for the sustainability and the environment? It seems incredibly short-sighted. I ask you to slow this down, and like everyone else is asking, what is the rush? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Margo Orchard.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Great. Thanks for the time. I think it's become really clear, hopefully to you all, that this vote really cannot happen today. It can't take place until there's an assessment of the impact on the land, given that it's Niagara Escarpment. There's rationale for selecting Westway instead of doing the usual RFP process. There's an appraisal of the current market value of the land. An options analysis is provided, including consideration of other offers that might be on the table. And finally, and most importantly, that the community has an opportunity to give feedback and have some consultation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve Orchard.
Hi, can you folks hear me?
Yep, good afternoon.
Afternoon. So I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said. I agree with everything that people have voiced so far. To me, the problem is clear that you don't respect the public process. We're limiting everyone to a minute. It seems like you're more concerned about the time people are speaking than what they're saying. I work in development. I appreciate development. This is one of the most underhanded, backwards processes I've ever seen and been involved with. I've been on the sides of the table making pitches. If you've done any homework on Westway, they have a history of insolvency, and they have absolutely zero qualifications to do anything good to this land. And I would put forward a motion that if this does go ahead, that we bring in a third party to review the process and hold everyone accountable. So I hope that you all can live with that, because I think that's where it would have to go. Thanks.
Thank you.
So that is the end of our list, but we are still looking for Heather Gilman, James Clark, Juliet Nelson, or Jenny Wayman. If any of you are in attendance and can raise your hand, if you would like to speak. Again, if you're on the phone, it's *9. Okay. Heather Gilman has raised her hand. We tried previously, but it wasn't working. So hopefully this time it'll work. Go ahead, Heather.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. It's pretty brief because I think that you've heard so many people. I really do hope that, that listening to those voices has been enlightening, has been of interest, has given you pause to really think about how to go forward, and now not to make rash kinds of decisions when really whose interests are they in? It doesn't appear that they're in the interests of too many people, and that's really what it comes down to. Who is this for? What is this land really about? And if you have been elected to be the voice of the people, you have been elected to do that. We look to you. We look to your governance. And I beg you to think about how we have entrusted.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, that is all of the speakers, unless we could give one more opportunity for James Clark, Juliet Nelson, or Jenny Wayman. If any of you are in attendance, if you could raise your hand. *9 if you're calling in. I did just check the list, Mayor McQueen, and I don't see those names in the list, but there are 2 others that have joined via phone. And I'm not seeing any hands. I believe that concludes our open forum.